In Russia's European northwest lies one of the country's oldest inhabited areas, the Novgorod Oblast. With records dating back to the mid-9th century, this is a place with a rich history. A powerful medieval republic, it was famed for the quality of its furs and the depth of its scholarship before it was annexed to the Greater Russian state in the 15th century. The region is around 600 kilometers from Moscow, and an overnight train journey will drop you right in the center of its capital. I've arrived in the famous old city of Great Novgorod, but I'm not actually going to stay here because I've heard that this region is supposed to be one of the most beautiful in Russia, and so that's where I'm headed. So this is telling me exactly the right way to go. My problem is, how do I get from A to B? And with lakes and dense forests making up 60% of the region, that's not always an easy task. One thing about travelling through the Novgorod wilderness is that you are likely to come across some fairly sizable obstacles, including the largest area of swampland in northwestern Russia. And if I'm going to get across that, I'm going to need some serious help. I think these gentlemen might have just the ticket here. Здравствуйте.
Hello.
Dima, yes?
I'm Dima.
Nice to meet you.
And this is
And Misha. Very nice to meet you guys. Right, so we have a swamp tank. And when you're dealing with a somewhat unusual means of transport, you have to take a seat where you can. Riding in comfort. It might get a little cold and muddy up here, but there were some great views and good company. And the breeze certainly keeps the mosquitoes off. We ploughed forward, and it wasn't long before we were deep in the swamp. We were heading for some tall spires in the distance, and our tank was taking the direct approach. Keep the speed going so we don't sink. In fact, the only thing that did slow us down was a quick break to pick up some local delicacies. The journey passed quickly, and before long, Dima was showing me around some imposing ruins dating back 100 years. So you've picked a pretty interesting place for a weekend break here.
Yeah, indeed. Just imagine huge, unlimited swamp, the just white spot in the middle, which is the lake, and in the middle of this spot there is a cathedral, just huge building of 40 meters high.
Yeah, it's amazing, huh? I think the monks and the nuns who lived here must have been very, very into their solitude.
Yeah, they really believed.
Right.
Let's go.
Up to the heavens. Ugh. The monastery may have been abandoned for the best part of a century, but finally some restoration work is underway. And if you don't mind some rickety scaffolding, the newly covered roof lets you see for miles around. After I'd taken a bird's eye view of the surroundings, it was time to hop back on our chariot and head to my next destination. Thank you, Swamp Tank. The only way to travel. I'd been dropped at the edge of the picturesque city of Staraya Russa. It's around 100 kilometers from Novgorod, and it's supposed to be one of the region's historical highlights. I'm standing on the banks of the Polist and the Parusia rivers here, and if you ever get a postcard from Stary Rus. It's quite likely to have this on it, which is the city's main cathedral, which dates back to the 19th century. But there have actually been churches on this site for almost 900 years. Records for Starea Russa show that it's one of the oldest cities in the entire country. And in its medieval heyday, this was a bustling regional trade centre. Nowadays, it's much sleepier. But alongside its beautiful architecture, there are a few natural surprises for visitors too. Now this is another famous Stary Rus landmark. It's Mineral Water Stream. This pipe goes down around 180 metres and the water is funneled up under its own natural pressure. So let's see what it tastes like. Well, I can see why they don't bottle it, because to me that pretty much resembles seawater. But it's this water that's the centre of the city's tourist industry. Right, well it might not be very drinkable, but that doesn't mean that it's not useful. And here at the Stary Rus Sanatorium, it's the main ingredient in all their treatments. People have been coming here to ease their aches and pains for more than 150 years, and their cure-all treatment is kept right out back.
This mud consists of sulfide and silt and originates from a lake. It has numerous medicinal properties and we have been using it here since 1839. We use around 1.5 cubic meters a day.
But collecting all this miraculous mud is no easy task. Right, need to learn the technique here. Stick, up, down, and in. There's definitely a knack to doing this quickly, but eventually I had enough to make a delivery. Oh, there we go. There's a load of the precious mud. Oh, now each crate there apparently holds almost 400 kilos, and they do 10 of them every day, which is enough to make almost 150 separate treatments. I think I might need one after all this. Right, and once we've got our full bucket, it's off for some lucky people to get dirty. Assuming I don't manage to tip this over in the process. I thought I deserved a free wallow, but sadly it seems the mud treatments are reserved for paying customers. So, either I could shell out, and then there's this, Stary Rus's most extreme remedy, a very wintry mineral water swim. And 20-odd seconds of pure, health-giving agony. Right, well, if that doesn't kill me, it better make me stronger. It wasn't the gentlest introduction to the area's waterways, but I wasn't going to let that put me off. And my next destination was supposed to be the most beautiful lake district in the whole of the Novgorod region. One thing about getting back to nature, it means that you sometimes aren't taking the best roads. So going from A to B can be a pretty long walk, unless you can find someone to maybe give you a lift. Sergei has been working with horses all his life, and he and Hero regularly take visitors along the scenic route to the city of Valdai, one of the region's most popular tourist destinations.
The horse is indispensable in the Novgorod region. The fact is that a motor vehicle would find it hard to clear some places in this rugged terrain, but a horse can do so easily. Pull left to go left, right for right, pull back to make him stop. Anyway, let's go.
Assuming you know how to control him, of course.
Let's see if I can get Hero to go in a straight line and not off into the grass here. Oh, it's easier than riding one, I can tell you that.
Valdai is bordered by huge areas of forest, and if you're looking to avoid the motorways, this is a great way to appreciate them and keep out of the rain.
Спасибо большое.
And once you arrive in Valdai itself, you'll find its most famous exports are all housed under one roof. Nowadays, if you hear a siren coming up behind you on the road, it lets you know you should get out of the way. And things really weren't that different 200 years ago in Russia. But back then, of course, they were using bells. If you heard a ring ring and saw a horse coming up on the road, it let you know there was a VIP there. And most of those bells were manufactured here in Valdai. And this is the largest bell museum in the country. Bells were made in the city until 1930, and according to their curator, there's a rather tall story surrounding their origins.
These are some of the famous Valdai bells that made their appearance here in the early 19th century. Legend has it that Tsar Ivan III ordered the Novgorod bell to be brought to Moscow, but the bell never made it there. It refused to leave its native Novgorod region, as it were. It broke up as it rolled down the hills, with the result that fragments of it were scattered over a large area. Those fragments, the legend says, gave birth to the famous Valdai bells.
Alongside the homemade versions are souvenirs brought home across the centuries from Russia's European wars and rescued from churches during the Soviet Union. And they still sound just as clear today. The city lies on the banks of Lake Valdai, the Novgorod region's second largest body of water, and a mecca for one particular type of tourist.
And with surroundings like these, it isn't hard to see why hunting is such a popular sport in these parts. And I'm going to have a little wander into the woods myself. I just need to pick up a couple of extra pieces of equipment.
And a little companionship never hurts either.
Seek, find bunnies. Hopefully, I won't have to use this today, unless we get any unexpected bear ambushes. I think this is going to be more of a journey of discovery. And I think that Guy's nose here, oh, come on, is going to lead us to something interesting. Go on, boy.
And as he's only a year old, that turns out to be rather a lot of things.
Pillowy chum and bones, rabbits.
But eventually, one particular scent won out, and it looked like I might be doing some shooting after all. Just not with my gun. Ask is a historian, archer and craftsman, and in this area he's never short of supplies.
It looks like we've got a mixture of the modern hunter and the ancient hunter here. So these are all made from the local wood here as well, the bow and the arrows.
Such bows were quite common among hunters in Europe in the Middle Ages. As a rule, the bows were about this tall or just slightly lower. It was more comfortable for a hunter while he was in the woods.
So I thought I'd join him in a little target practice.
See if I can remember how to do this. Well, I think that I'm probably going to be more dangerous with the gun than the bow and arrow.
That was as close as I got to a forest animal all day. And it wasn't long before I was ready to exchange the call of the wild for some home comforts.
So I didn't bag any bunnies, but I do have a hot cuppa and this view, and I think that's good enough.
I think I'd earned a little R&R, and what better place to recharge my batteries than here on the edge of Lake Valdai.